Afternoon. Welcome to our Tuesday staff meeting. And last time I didn't give us a chance to introduce ourselves on the dais, so we're going to start and allow everyone to introduce themselves. We'll start from my right.
Assistant Clerk Christy Rischel.
Leslie Hervey, Clerk to the Board.
Stephanie Summer Dumas, Commissioner.
Good afternoon. I'm County Commissioner Denise Driehaus.
Jeff Faluto, County Administrator.
Michael Friedman, Legal Counsel.
Thank you. And I am President Commissioner Alicia Reese. So if you don't mind, we do have a special recognition. I'd like to start there if you don't mind. Our Health Commissioner has a presentation, but we have some special guests who helped us get through a very, very tough, icy time. I think our worst day so far going into this year. And hopefully the last day. I'm one that I do not like snow at all, except on Christmas. Then I want to be done with it. But it was a major ice storm, and there was a lot of folks that had to coordinate. I was actually flying back in town, and I got here just in time to fly into the ice storm and try to get across the river and get home. And so we have some outstanding workers who helped us be safe. We've heard a lot of horror stories in other cities and counties, but the work that you guys and men and women did, we wanted to give special recognition. So I want to turn over to Mr. Aludo, who will introduce and talk about the recognition today.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. And yeah, you teed it up quite nicely. And this gets back to last year, as folks will remember. It seems distant ago now, but it actually just last month, the tri-state was hit by, I guess it was one of those bomb cyclone events that brought blizzard-like conditions to the tri-state and to Hamilton County. Conditions were so bad, as you will recall, wind chills were going down into the 30 below mark, that we did something that we rarely do in this county, and we suspended our operations and closed our buildings. So while closing operations means that a majority of our employees are asked to stay at home for the safety of the community, to stay off of the roads, it doesn't mean that for all of our employees. And some employees, because of the nature of what they do, are asked to report in those conditions and are asked to actually carry out their jobs in those during those conditions. So in particular, and we probably aren't going to touch today on every single employee who had to work during the cold in these conditions. We know that we talk routinely in these meetings about the work of our 911 call takers, our operators, the work of our sheriff's deputies, et cetera. We don't often talk about some of our public works employees specifically who have to respond in those conditions, whether it is plowing our county roads and making sure there's salt down on our roads and making sure roads are passable, making sure that if we have to, or making sure that our buildings remain ingress and egress remains clear, making sure that our parking lots are plowed, making sure that if there are water leaks that has happened this past event because of the cold conditions, that the people who have to respond to that still have to respond. I'm thankful. I don't think we had any of these incidents this time, but even when we have hydrants that break in these conditions, I know that our crews that do hydrant repair are out there routinely in sub-zero conditions at times, knee deep in water fixing hydrants. So all those guys and women have to report in those conditions. So what I wanted to do today, and there's not a lot of structure to this, Madam President, but what I wanted to do is just on a department by department basis, just go through, list out some names, and then turn it over to the relevant department head just to say a couple of words and acknowledge their folks, and then we can move on if that's okay with you. All right. So the first department I wanted to acknowledge was our County Facilities Department, and I believe Ralph Linney is here. In particular, County Facilities was responsible for repairing a water leak that actually occurred at 230 East 9th in the early morning of December 26th. So right after Christmas, we had a sprinkler line and domestic hot water pipe leak at 230 East 9th. So these folks had to report to make sure that that the building was back up in operation for court operations when operations resume. So Tony Matre, John Gilbert, Ernie Hedrick, Carl Edwards, Randy Wyant, Alexander Robinson, Chris Earls, Mark Jackson, Seth Augustiniak, Gary Jackson, Alan Wittich, Bert Watts, Matthew Butts, John Nestor, Dave Spitznagel, Dave Nienaber, John Kleeman, Zach Hahn, Tay Boyle, Robert Varble, Dan Brewer, and James Sorn were all responsible for responding to that and responsible for getting operations back up quickly. I'm also going to quickly mention here the employees that were responsible, before I turn it over to Ralph, for shoveling our sidewalks to make sure that all of our buildings were operating and checking to make sure our buildings were operational in the sub-zero temperatures. So we had Tom Friedoff, Jesse Estes, John Gilbert, Andy Stafford, Ian Zellner, Glenn Wilhoit, Joe Houlihan, Doug Bruce, Ernie Hedrick, Louis Osterbrock, Jody McDonald, Christopher Casarcia, Joe Cressup, Jim Helton, Chris Hendrickson, Anthony Martini, Carl Edwards, Randy Wyant, Alexander Robinson, Chris Earls, Jerry Bradley, Ken Galt, Curtis Compton, Will Perkins, Mike Davis, Chris Evans, John Gregg, Seth Augustiniak, Gary Jackson, and Alec Winnick. And Randy, Christopher apologizes, one who always gets their names butchered. I apologize for butchering that name as well. So Ralph, just wanted to turn it over to you to say any words you wanted about your facility staff.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that I have several good leadership people in our department. Tony Montre and John Gilbert both responded right away, sometime after midnight, to assess what the damage was, what the problem was, and then went through and called in the people at the same time themselves cleaning up the water and getting it shut off. Additional staff came in later that day. Also on Tuesday night, worked for over a whole week in getting the water out of the building, getting the moisture taken care of, and repairing it. And it basically has been an over 2-week project. My other staff that we seem to forget about is when the sidewalks are clear, and the Public Works does a great job of taking care of the driveways for us. But I have an excellent staff. We have 24/7 facilities, as you know, the 911, Youth Center, the Justice Center, that has to be cleared those same days. So I'm very appreciative. They make me look good. They make the county look good, and to the residents and to the people who are downtown. And I appreciate them doing what they do. Thank you.
And thank you, Ralph. And it is amazing that, especially on cold winter, icy days, when I'm coming into work, and I always try to see if I can beat the facility staff. It seems like no matter how early I get here, the sidewalks are already done. So they do a fantastic job. Next department I wanted to move on to is planning and development. So I think James Noyes is here. These are the staff who I mentioned attending to fire hydrants, but in this particular incident, responsible primarily for plowing our county parking lots to make sure that when people arrive at county buildings, that they're suitable for parking. So James, I've got a list of employees here. If I missed anyone, please let me know. So we have Jesse Davies, Scott Wilson, William Bose, Connor Johnston, Casey Cooper, Tyler Mahan, Jason Toney, and Jeff Gunn. So James, if I missed anyone, please let me know. But again, these guys are responsible. And commissioners, you were just out at the Public Works Field Operations Office out in Burlington, where the 513 relief bus came into for its first viewing. So you met some of these staff and know how dedicated they are in terms of what they do. But I'll turn it over to Director Noyes for some brief comments.
Great. Good afternoon and Happy New Year to you. So first year I've been in front of you, so this year. One of the things is that for planning and development, one of the forgotten kind of divisions that we have is this field operations division. And I'm so happy that you were able to go out there just last week or so, about 10 days ago, I think, right? But these guys do a tremendous amount of work. We have a lot of machinery out there, a lot of equipment, but these guys get up early and they get it done. I mean, these guys are awesome. So, and they proved their mettle on that snowstorm and that ice storm. I called Bruce on the Thursday beforehand. I said, "Hey, Bruce, you got everything you need. What's happening? What's going on here?" And he said, "Yeah, we're gearing up, at 2:30 in the morning, and we're going to get this thing done." So I've actually asked Bruce to come out, to say a few words about specifically what his team did. They clear the parking lots for us, the county-owned parking lots, so that our employees can get in and work. Our 911 workers, our folks that have to come in, they clear those and make sure that our team is safe and can get here. Where everybody else was staying home on that Friday, these guys got it clean for those people who have to be here serving the county. So these guys do a tremendous amount of work. Bruce, can you elaborate a little bit, please? Bruce McLean?
Good afternoon. First and foremost, I want to thank you for this opportunity and for this recognition. It really means a lot, and it's very impacting. So thank you so much. On behalf of the employees, we take a lot of pride in being first responders. We take a lot of pride in having an attitude of servitude, in that our motto is to remove the snow so that you can go. And on this, no pun intended, but on this celebratory weekend, very comparable to football, it does take a team effort. And when everyone does a little bit, no one's got to do a lot. And we're just happy to serve. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, James and Bruce. And last but certainly not least, I want to move on to the county engineer. I believe that Engineer Beck is out of town today, so we are privileged to have Assistant Engineer or Deputy Engineer Todd Long here. Todd, I will defer to you. I'm happy to read the names unless you would like me to read, because there's a lot of them. But these are the folks that were out there plowing our roads and keeping our roads passable. So, but I, as a separate office, want to defer whether you wanted to read the names or wanted me to.
Jeff, I'd be happy if you want to take a stab at it.
All right.
I'd really be happy to do it for you.
I'm going to go through all of them here, because each and every one of them deserves to be recognized. Kenneth Day, Stephen Farrow, Jared Stevens, Travis Asher, Blake Beckett, Matthew Blevins, Brandon Coffey, Aiden Crowell, Scott Dillinger, Logan Junkins, Blake King, Pamela Kroll Woods, Daniel Lahane, David Lavelle, Dylan Maple, Joseph Schoenlaub, Eric Stoltz, Michael Waits, Nathaniel Ard, Kurt Hampton, Michael Lamana, Matthew Lawrence, Greg Neiswanger, Aaron Smith, Timothy Wollenweber, Kevin Bray, Anthony Johnson, David Scheit, Jody Couch, Yolanda Donahue, Thomas Baker, Neil Miller, Jeffrey Mullins, Ronnie Tackett, Mark Bullhauer, Michael Brown, Dale Cole, Albert Dolan III, Jerry Gillespie, Shane Hall, Kenneth Hammett, Scott Hudgens, Brian Litchfield, Chad Lusby, Tim Oswald, Joseph Penwell, Daniel Radcliffe, Carl Rutherford, Alexander Richardson, Caleb Schlake, Jacob Upton, Joshua Vestring, Brian Young, Matthew Dickhouse, Thomas Gessendorf, Richard Adams, Frank Daria, William Scott Francis, Nick Newscable, Mason Blankenship, Andrew Davidson, Jonah Day, Austin Evans, Samuel Gressler, Glenn McIntyre, Drake Oldson, Alex Rice, Colton Rucker, Noah Rudisell, James Steele, Tyler Tackett, Samuel Weiner, Jared Wilson, Kerry Kirchhoff, John Boggs, Joseph Barron, Robert Duncan, Troy Gillespie, George Craigmile, and Wesley Nichols. Todd?
I couldn't have done it better myself, Jeff. Thank you. That was a very impressive list. That's about 60 or so employees in total. I think the engineer and I myself want to thank our employees from the bottom of our heart for the hard work that they do, having to take sometimes time out of their holiday schedules as well so that we can keep the roads safe. We have enough work. We have to split our work for snow and ice control into 3 different divisions. And we have a number of different large vehicles, and a lot of time and effort goes into snow plowing and trying to keep everybody safe. Each storm presents a different opportunity for us. This was a particularly challenging storm due to the duration and the quickness that the cold came on. People may not be aware that the salt that we use and sometimes the calcium that we use only works within certain temperature ranges. So it becomes a big challenge for us to be able to do this for each and every storm. So we put together a big team effort to try and plan out what's happening for each one of these events. And I truly want to thank our employees for doing the best that they could do across the board. Every time it's a challenge, and we could not do it individually. It takes a great team effort for all of our employees. So I want to thank everybody for that very much. We look forward to the next one, right?
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
And Madam President, that's all I had formally, but I didn't know I know we have a lot of folks here today who are part of that, so I didn't know if we at least wanted to have those folks stand to be recognized. So anyone who is a name that was read or a part of that group, if you want to stand up just so we can see who all is there.
Thank you for all you do. I'm going to allow both my colleagues to say some more praises about you, and then afterwards would ask you to join us on the dais here and for us to take a photo, how proud we are of our employees, our first responders. So I'll just start off. Let me just say a couple things that maybe was not said. I believe this was Christmas Eve, the day before Christmas Eve. So we're talking about you guys being out there to make sure that we're safe right around the holiday when most of you and others would like to be with your families, and you made it possible for us to be able to be with our families, be able to go out on #1 shopping day for last-minute shoppers, and you had to clear it out so we could get to go and pick up those last-minute things. And just as someone who was out there to see the temperature drop like it did, I saw it go from 40 degrees. We were in the car driving, I was trying to get home, 40 degrees, and went down to 16 degrees in less than 30 minutes, and it kept going down. So the challenges that was mentioned earlier, the type of salt, when to put the salt out, how to make sure we deal with these conditions that we hadn't seen in a long time. I also want to acknowledge Nick Crosley from Emergency Management, who also worked with our administrator. I want to thank him because he kept us in the loop of what was happening in real time while you guys were out there getting it done. So I just want to really thank you all for keeping us safe, keeping Hamilton County safe, and having one Hamilton County. There were some other places around the country where people didn't make it home. They didn't survive. And so the work that you were able to do to help us keep going and not have to pull over as much, get on home so that we could get home. And then I'm thank God that you were able to get home as well to your family. So just want to thank you and congratulations again to Mr. Ludo for us having the top staff in the country as it relates to Hamilton County employees and workers and first responders. And I also want to say to Planning and Development, it was great coming out to see the bus, but then also see what you do with the fire hydrants. I got a chance to see it myself for the first time because we had COVID, and I was able to really get out there like we normally do. So it was just great to see all the work that you all do. Vice President Driehaus?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for the presentation and for your work here. Thank you to Facilities Planning and Development and the Engineer's Office for being here. I say it's a more colorful meeting than usual with some of the guys in the audience. But I think sometimes people that aren't familiar with county operations forget how important county operations are to the welfare of this community and to the safety of the people that live in this community. I think especially about 911, about the streets, about the Justice Center, and about access to all of those facilities, and the work that you did to make sure that access was still available, that work continued. I don't think people realize how much work goes on during the holiday season or any other season related to county employees. And so while the rest of us, I was hunkered down with my kids who were both in from out of town at my house, and we had done a lot of preparation to knowing that we would have to stay in that day. I regret that you were out, Commissioner Reese. It was very unsafe that day, but you guys were out there doing the work. And so you are, again, are willing to do this when the rest of us are comfortably tucked away at home. Somebody has to keep the buildings running, the streets clean, and you guys are the guys that do it. So very, very grateful on behalf of a grateful county to recognize you today and to, we don't do it often enough, sing your praises and remind people just how important it is that the county operates efficiently and that you guys are out there doing the work. So thanks again for what you do.
Thank you. Commissioner Dumas?
Thank you so much. This is a major deal for me and for the board. This is major. You guys and ladies do important things for our county, but most importantly for me, I want you to know that you are important, that we recognize you as individuals. Your department is important. Your services are important. Thank you is not enough. I just thank you all for all that you do. And for the last 4 years that I've been on the board, I have been able to sleep very restfully, because when I see a weather prediction of what's coming to our county, I have a lot of faith and confidence in our staff that are here. So I thank you so much, and I thank the board so much for acknowledging what they do. It's not a little thing, it's a major thing, and you are important to us. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you all would come and join us behind on the dais, and we'll put our mics down. Bridget will instruct us what to do.
Well, you won't.
And while folks are heading back to their seats, just a note that while any of you are more than welcome to stick around for the entire meeting if you'd like, you don't have to. So I see the planning and development folks are already heading out. So
We got to get back to work. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Next, we have on the agenda, and I thank you for your patience, Health Commissioner Greg Kesterman.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioners, and Happy New Year. So I think so far the news that I have for today is really good news since I had since I had the last opportunity to brief this commission. So as far as cases, this morning when I had a chance to look at our cases 7-day average, we were at 70 cases per day compared to December 12th when I believe I was here last, we were at 138 cases per day. So we've nearly halved that. Once again, that's merely the tip of the iceberg. We know there's a bunch of untested cases, but this continues to be one of the measures that kind of helps us judge how much COVID is within our community. When you spread that out geographically, we continue to see those cases fairly evenly distributed in Hamilton County, and you can see the relief on the map. We have seen a significant decrease pretty much geographically spread throughout Hamilton County. Also, in Ohio's metrics, we continue to remain yellow or medium risk for COVID-19, which is also good news. As far as what is spreading within our community, we see a variety of Omicron variants, although nothing particularly of concern. All the variants continue to spread very easily, but we're not seeing anything causing individuals to get more sick, which continues to be good news as well. Hospitalizations continue to just slowly creep upwards. Today we were at 199 individuals within our hospital systems, 23 individuals within the intensive care unit. Really not much change since I was here last, which also is very important. And I'll talk in a moment. I have, I believe, 1 or 2 slides on flu, but we are also starting to see significant relief with regards to flu in our community. So both of these put together are really helping things within our hospital systems. As far as vaccinations, not much change. We continue to offer a variety of clinics. I like to remind folks that we do continue to offer homebound vaccinations. So if you or a loved one are unable to get out this winter into a normal setting like a clinic or your doctor's office, we are bringing those to your home. So please take advantage of that. Information for that can be found on our website at hcph.org. As of this point, anyone 6 months or older is eligible to be vaccinated, and there are booster shots available for anyone, but we're really trying to encourage those over the age of 65 to get boosted. You are at highest risk for having severe illness, and the booster is known and is extremely effective at preventing significant illness. Switching gears then to flu, the first slide that I have is national hospitalization data, and I am really proud to report that first wave that we were talking about has finally diminished and is now less than we have seen other flu years at this time of the year. I have looked for through many years of flu data. We have had years with more significant flu than just this year. This is a very early peak compared to other years. It is always possible that we see a second peak, although that's very unusual. And at this point, looking at data from around the world, likely this will be the only peak that we have in the United States as well. Probably more important than national data is zooming in on Hamilton County data, and we are seeing the exact same trend here in Southwest Ohio and Hamilton County, where the flu peak was early, and we are now back to a normal level of flu activity for Hamilton County. So that is good news for our community. It's great news for our hospital systems and our clinical providers here within Hamilton County. The last slide that I have, I've touched base about a month ago on measles within Ohio. And I just wanted to provide an update that we have really not seen much increase in measles in central Ohio. I think since I last presented, they've only had a few additional cases of measles. Here in Hamilton County, we remain at 0 cases of measles, which is wonderful news as well. And so we'll continue to watch that. But I do want to reiterate one point that I make every chance I have, and that's that vaccinations work. And the most important statistic in my mind from this slide is that of all of the 85 cases of measles that occurred in Columbus, none of them were fully vaccinated. The vaccine is effective against measles, and we'll hear this time and time again, regardless of the infectious disease. But if there's a vaccine, it's effective at reducing serious illness, and in the case of measles, it's actually extremely effective at completely preventing measles. So with that, I will turn it back to you for any questions.
Well, thank you, Health Commissioner Kesterman. It was good. You said we got some good news.
That is
so,
good.
It was great. I'll open it up to my colleagues, Vice President Driehaus.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for being here, Commissioner Kesterman. I had heard this on the national news, and I assumed that you would concur that we didn't. I remember last year and the year before, we were very worried about the holidays and people gathering and congregating in a way that they don't usually do. So we didn't see much of an increase from the holidays.
Really, we saw no significant increases whatsoever, neither in the hospitalization data nor the case data as a result of the holidays.
So what is your analysis of that?
So I think certainly we have a decent amount of our population that is either both vaccinated or has had COVID-19 and has some immunity to the current strains that are currently circulating.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dumas?
Thank you so much. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I think being consistently coming to our meetings has allowed us to stay on top of Hamilton County and the health of our residents. And so I think that's really good that you continue to do that if you're able to. And I just want to thank your staff again for all the hard work that you've done. Appreciate it. And I'm sure the people of Hamilton County appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Health Commissioner Kesterman. And I join with thanking you for coming to our meetings and keeping people updated. I know one thing we had talked about was the ongoing, like once you had COVID and you survived it, and then the long COVID care or something?
Yep, long COVID.
And I know we had mentioned at some point we may want to talk a little bit more about that because you had mentioned that that was an issue that we should keep our eyes on. There are a lot of people dealing with long COVID, and I know we put some money toward UC Health to have a facility, but that facility is booked up. So just wanted to know, maybe at another meeting coming back, I wanted to make sure I kept that on the front burner, something you had brought up last year.
Absolutely. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, and thanks for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we will have a presentation by our Director of Jobs and Family Services regarding SNAP benefits and giving an update. I know there has been a lot of concern, and I know this board has been concerned, as well as you, Director Patton, regarding the SNAP benefits. I want to put a highlight to this. Comes from the federal government.
That's
The
correct.
board has not stopped anything, nor has JFS. It has been stopped by our federal folks in Washington. And you're going to talk about how it affects us here, and then we'll open it up about a game plan on what we will try to do down on the ground level to help so many people that will be affected. So.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for your time, Commission, for the opportunity to talk about really what I believe is going to be a huge impact for Hamilton County. Also, all citizens in the state of Ohio are being impacted by this. It's not specifically Hamilton County. As Madam President indicated, this is a federal decision, and so I'll walk a little bit through that, talk about some numbers specific to Hamilton County, and certainly answer any questions that you have at the end. So effective March 1st, the allotments that were emergency allotments that food stamp recipients or SNAP recipients have been receiving for almost 3 years will end. The last emergency allotment that families will receive, households will receive, will be in the month of February. So after 3 years, the United States Department of Agriculture Food Nutrition Service announced that the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Emergency Allotment are ending. The Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023, signed into law in December, ended the authority for the SNAP emergency allotments. Just a side note to that also, Indiana and Kentucky have already gone through this. Ohio was waited for the federal decision to be made, but our neighboring counties have experienced this already, from what I've been told after talking to Kurt Riper at the Free Store Food Bank. The last month, like I mentioned, of the emergency allotment is February. Starting in March, clients will no longer receive the emergency allotment. There will be no second posting of a payment. So the way this worked over the 3-year period is that those that were eligible for SNAP benefits received their standard allotment in the beginning of the month based on their case number. So there's a date on which all individuals received their initial allotment, the standard allotment. The supplement allotment came through towards the end of the month. So there were 2 allotments, the standard allotment and the emergency allotment. So in March, that emergency allotment, the second allotment, will no longer be available. Again, this is a federal program. Hamilton County Job and Family Services or the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services have no authority in this matter. This was a federal program that ended. The other thing I just want to point out briefly, this is a little bit in the weeds, but I think it's important for folks that are listening. Because it's a federal law change, what would typically happen if you received a decision on an eligibility program that you were receiving, you would be eligible for a hearing. You could file for a hearing. The state has hearing officers that will determine if there was an error made on that eligibility determination, if the county did anything wrong as it relates to that. Those hearing rights will not be in effect in this case because this is a federal decision. So there won't be hearing rights associated with this particular program. This is where I think it illuminates the implications of what we're talking about here. Example impacts, and just thank you so much for having 2 screens so I can kind of just look at that screen and not have to turn that way. The example of the impacts, for example, an individual collecting a minimum allotment of $23 per month, they've been receiving a maximum of $281 per month, or an increase of $258. So $258 additional dollars for 3 years per month. For a 3-person household normally receiving $180 per month, they've been receiving $740 per month, an increase of $560 per month. And then finally, households that were receiving the maximum already, again, this would be based on their income at the time, their resources at the time. If they were already at the max, they were getting an additional $95 per month. So some higher level numbers here related to the SNAP funding in Hamilton County. This is a snapshot for the month of December. So in the month of December, a little over 52,000 households received SNAP benefits. Non-emergency SNAP benefits for the month of December totaled a little over $16 million. So these are the standard benefits that would have been issued normally, non-emergency, $16 million for the month of December. If you factor in the SNAP emergency allotments, that was an additional a little over $12 million in emergency SNAP benefits that were issued in December, will be issued in January, and February will not be issued in March. That's just a diagram basically illustrating the same point that I just made. You can see that the 44% of the December benefits were emergency allotments of the total benefit amount. And then locally, I continue to work with our JFSPC team. I have a meeting at 3:30 today to talk through what we can do as a community to talk about helping our community transition through this process. I've been in contact with Kurt Reiber at the Free Store Food Bank. He's a part of JFSPC. I know his team has been made aware of this. They're working on addressing the need as well. And again, they're a regional facility, so they've been dealing with this in Kentucky and Indiana already. So this is new in terms of Hamilton County. They're going to be working with us as well. We continue to have 513 relief supports. Thankfully, we were able to get additional funding there. So we continue to have support for families who are struggling with rent and utility assistance. We continue to have that available to them. Again, our organization continues to determine eligibility for all of our standard benefits, cash, food stamps, medical benefits as well. And then we have a link in all of our websites to other areas where you can get support for food assistance. The other thing I want to make sure that I point out as well is the state has done a really good job. We administer the program, but it's the state system. They own the system. They own the program, and so they've done a lot of work on the front end. They've done a press release. They are sending out direct mailings to everyone who is going to be affected. They've done robocalls. They're going to do text for all of those cases that are going to be impacted by this change across the state. I've been in calls with them all week where they're giving us updates locally on what the state is doing to make sure that our citizens have as much advance notice as possible so that they can prepare for what is going to take place in March. And so that is the conclusion of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have as it relates to this.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And we wanted to have the presentation today rather than just a press release because we wanted you to be able to break down through your PowerPoint what's actually happening. This is devastating, particularly as it relates to timing. I know originally some folks will say, well, they did 3 years and you knew it was going to end, but the issue is the reason it happened in the first place is because of the state of emergency of COVID and how it affected people economically. Unfortunately, the sting of COVID continues because now we have inflation. I mean, eggs are almost $9. So if the inflation is up, there still is a major need for so many people on something that's so basic as food. And so while I understand it's coming from the federal government, I think there are some things that, one of the things we wanted to make sure that we're announcing is an action plan, which you talked about a little bit. I just want to highlight a few things.
Okay.
Item number one, we are releasing our 513 relief bus on January the 26th at Corinthian Baptist Church. We'll have Jobs and Family Services folks on site to be able to walk people through what is available. We are also working to also have Free Store Food Bank there as well with us so that we can help people walk them through this process and see if there's other things that might be provided with them. Number two, I met with Mr. Ludo, and one of the things that we're looking into to see what funding we have maybe left over available through our ARPA money that we might be having to look at or should look at as a board to provide additional funding possibly for the food pantries, Free Store Food Bank, et cetera. They're going to have, the pantries are going to have a strain because, as you said, if there's other areas plus here, plus people having high inflation, that means that when you say inflation, that means the cost of food has gone up and your benefits has gone down. So how are you going to bridge that gap? And we're hoping that the economy recovers, but we need to keep a safety net in place. So I'm asking Mr. Ludo if he would be able to report to us by our Thursday meeting what's available, and then we can make a decision as a board if we need to provide some additional funding, relief, if you will, to be prepared through our Free Store Food Bank and other pantries that will need help. The third issue that I wanted to make sure we look at, and I don't know if I get the acronym right, is it PRC?
That's correct.
Okay. And
Prevention, retention, and contingency.
say it one more time.
Prevention, retention, and contingency.
Yes, so we have a prevention issue, a retention issue, and a
Contingency.
contingency issue. So our PRC, there's a line of things, we got money there, we increased one of the eligibility, there's a whole stack of eligibility. I don't know if this also could be one of the eligibility, maybe a one-time help to get people through.
We can adjust or modify our PRC plan. I'll have to look into the details about how that would look, but there are income restrictions to PRC, so it is typically 200% of poverty, so it has some flexible funding there, but we can certainly take a look at how we could utilize that creatively to also support families in this situation.
Okay, and then we also have adjusted our portal, 513relief.org. I know Bridget's adjusting that where it's at the front, and if you need help, emergency, you can go there. So the items that we're looking at is we got our 513 relief bus where we're gonna be out in the community face-to-face with the people on January 26th for those who need help, other help that we can provide and walk them through the process, and also partner with the Free Store Food Bank that day at Corinthian Baptist Church at 10 a.m. We also are going to look at what funding we might have to be able to increase our capacity with our food pantries, Free Store Food Bank and other food pantries to be prepared for what might occur. We're going to look at the PRC to see if we can adjust eligibility. So if those who do qualify at that level, I would think those are the ones that are going to get hit the hardest, that we might be able to have some, at least one-time help to help get them through. And we also have our 513relief.org that people can go right to and get help and understanding. The last thing that I want to also add, that I'd like to, I don't think we should take this sitting down. We appreciate Washington, but we're on the ground here. We're the ones that seeing the faces of the people who need the help. And inflation has really driven the cost of food way out of the ballpark. I don't think this is the right time. I'm going to, as president, to put together with the administrator and hopefully with the support of my colleagues, a letter that we can send to our delegation in Washington, as well as the Department of Agriculture, explaining the situation that's happening right on the ground. They may see a piece of legislation and they're way up here, but we see how that legislation plays out at the grocery store, how this legislation plays out at the food table. And I think our board has been so very aggressive in making sure that we get the funds to the people. And I think on behalf of the people of Hamilton County, you've talked about how many people would be affected by this?
52,000, a little over 52,000 people are SNAP recipients in Hamilton County.
So on behalf of our 52,000 Hamilton County residents, and these are families, so it's 52,000 families that will be, and they may have a family of 2, 3, or 4. You multiply that number. And so I just think having a letter that we could send to them on behalf of our citizens, maybe they'll take, you never know. Last time I said, go get some more money, and they said we won't get it, and we did. But I think we need to be on record on behalf of the 52,000 families that will be affected, particularly in a time when eggs are going up and the cost of food and other things are going up. babies and children be affected. So those are our some of the plans that I wanted to put forward. I will open it up to my colleagues who I know both are also extremely concerned about this issue as well. Vice President.
Thank you, Michael, for being here and talking us through the SNAP. We've already started to receive calls in the office related to that. So let me ask you the first question I have, which is when we do get calls into the office related to this, I mean, it's one thing to explain that we don't have any control over the decision, but people still want to know more information. So the local contact then, if we get that kind of call, is whom?
Call center 946-1000.
Okay.
Can take those calls as well, answer those questions related to this particular eligibility.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. So as you talk about, because the benefits have been going on for such a long period of time related to COVID, the fear is that people have gotten used to that benefit, and now it's going to be a very dramatic decrease in funding through this program. We talked about food insecurity then as a result. What other things from your lens, your professional lens, are we going to see? Like what other agencies or what kind of agencies are we going to see a strain put on outside the issues related to food?
I think any agency that serves the public that need any additional supportive services, not just food, but other aspects, heating and cooling support, community action agency, folks that are working with families on a wide variety of matters that they might face in Talbot House or alcohol, drug addiction. It's going to put a strain on families in general. So I think really it's important, and the reason that we're meeting today with JFSPC is to really walk through with our county partners what the implications they believe will happen as a result of this change happening in March. So my hope is that we'll get some really good ideas from the group. Beach Acres and Talbot House is on the call, and obviously Free Store Food Bank is on the call, Legal Aid is on the call. So a group of 16 or 17 providers that are participating that we're going to walk through and kind of talk about and brainstorm ideas that we can start to share as a joint group so that we're on the same page about where we can have the most impact to help people transition from where they are to where they're going to be in March.
Great. Yeah, and I think obviously the food banks are part of that, and
Yeah,
I agree with Commissioner Reese that we need to make sure that that is one of our highest priorities. The other one that comes to mind is Sweet Cheeks. They're a diaper bank, and so
Correct.
that might be on the list as well. And so I do concur with this approach that to provide additional assistance somehow would just prolong the agony, really. And so the idea here is to see if the county has dollars to invest in the agencies
Correct.
that are going to be strained the most by this decrease in benefit to the constituents in the county.
That's correct. I think based on what I've heard, and I've talked to Kurt a little bit about that, other counties have used some additional ARPA funding specifically for the food banks, the pantries, the folks that it's going to actually provide an opportunity to replace what they're going to lose in a direct kind of way. Obviously not to the extent that the emergency assistance was able to provide, but certainly I think the pantries would be an area where I would highly recommend us to consider other alternatives there.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I was surprised to see the dramatic decrease in funding. I mean, that's a dramatic drop. So thank you for providing those figures to us. So again, I am supportive of looking at the ARPA dollars to see where we have some wiggle room with some of the RFPs that we've already sent out. That oftentimes some money will fall to like kind of the bottom line after the RFPs have come in and we realize we're not going to spend all those dollars on that specific purpose. We can redesignate those dollars. So I too am interested in seeing how we can do that and then getting a broader picture, as you say, of all the agencies that we might contemplate as we think about if those ARPA dollars falling to the bottom and how we can redistribute that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dumas.
Thank you so much. I've also asked a lot of questions to a lot of people, and I've also gotten calls from the public, and the first thing I let them know is it's not us, it's the federal government, and they need to know that. And certainly I let them know that I understand their plea, and what it's going to mean to their family or even a single person. And this is not a county issue, as was said earlier. We have to let our legislature know. This is devastating. I heard devastating, unbelievable, tragic, any negative word you can think of. Because really, I'm thinking about the babies, I'm thinking about the seniors and the single people, and my understanding you have to eat so much food to be, if you're diabetic, you need to be able to eat so much to keep your sugar levels up. And so this is, as was said earlier by my two colleagues, tragic. And we have lobbyists everywhere, and we need to be using them. This is a primary, it should go to the top of the heap as we look at our lobbyists. And I'm not naive enough to know that even though we have plans of using other agencies to kind of supplement, we can't do it by ourselves. And so I think about the repercussions of not having food. I mean, just violence, people trying to steal food or just not having enough in them to even be able to think straight, and the education of our children, and the choices that people are going to have to make because of the lack of food that they have. I just as an aside, I know it's not SNAP, but as far as free lunches and that they have at schools, that's not impacted at all.
That's my understanding. And so the summer program related to SNAP, my understanding is that that is not going to change. So as those months come online, those supplements will remain in place based on what I know today.
Okay, thank you. And so I'm hoping, I know I've asked also about ARPA funding, and this is major, this is national. So we have to get together with all the people that we can to move this forward and upward. And this is just, you come accustomed to it, which really the level of SNAP benefits was, in my opinion, too low anyway. And so you raise it. And so now, so the reason the federal government, as far as you know, decided to do this is because and you mentioned this, we're not out of the woods of COVID. But is that their reasoning? Or are they saying they're out of
I can't answer that specifically. I think it was a part of a bill that included some other things as well. And so I don't know exactly. I do know that the other states decided to end it early. Earlier than the state of Ohio did. There are other states, I won't quote a number, but in the double digits that are on the same timeline we are. So this is going to be a national implication here to the country.
And I think one of my colleagues said about this is a basic need. So we need to scream and holler and come up with a plan that we think may work in Hamilton County, and all the other counties need to do the same. It's nothing to sit on for sure. Not that we are obviously thinking of ways to help. But so as far as letting the people know about the March 1st date, what are you guys doing?
Well, yeah. So the state has already started that. There's a press release. They have all of the information on the families and individuals who are currently on SNAP, receiving SNAP benefits. They've sent letters directly to those individuals. If they have an email address, if they have a phone number, and they're sending text messages, they're sending robocalls to all of those families, as well as social media. We're doing that locally with our social media sites, but the state is also using all of the interactive portals that they have, particularly for public benefits, to make sure that that message is front and center on those websites from now until March. So the state has done, I think, a really good job of making sure that they're supporting the counties and getting the notice out to the public about what is going to take place.
Okay. So thank you. The 52,000 you spoke of earlier, is that a higher number than usual on the SNAP program?
Not typically. That is pretty standard in terms of what we've seen in the past, and so that is what we've seen. Obviously, the difference is that they were getting a higher amount of benefits, but that is around what we've seen in the past.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Director Patton. Just want to highlight once again, one of the things that we're working on, or what we're trying to work on now. The state is delivering the bad news through letters. Are they also delivering help? If not, I think we should be able to text through, do the same thing, text, robocall, letter about calling us and getting some other help, just like we all have said. People have contacted our offices, they received the bad news. We need to put out something about the action plan. Here are some ways we can help you possibly.
Correct. And so we've started that process with our website. So we're working to make sure that we have resources available there. Obviously, making sure all of our call center staff understand where to direct folks when they call, if there are additional resources available in the community. Right now, Free Store Food Bank and what we can discern from our meeting later this afternoon, we'll add to that list if we can develop other resources for families. We've started to do that as well on all of our social media. So if we have pushing that out to the community, Facebook, Instagram, all of our social media includes that information as well. And so we'll do everything we have control over at the county level to make sure we're working with the state to get that message out. The ability to send letters and direct mailings to those clients, we can try to work and see if the state can supplement that. But they've done really a lot of work so far with respect to sending and making sure people are have notice of that. What we're working on, I think, is correct, which is to make sure we have information to share with folks about where they can go locally. And so we're going to do that as well as much as we can.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that here's the Hamilton County Action Plan. We did not, obviously, it's the federal government, but here's our action plan. Just as Vice President Driehaus said, they call, where do I send them? I think we should also be proactive. We should have a text messaging program ourselves. I've been asking about that for a little while, that we can text out, hey, you are a Hamilton County resident, you're on this, here is some help. So the person said, well, I got a text. So I want us to work proactively. We understand what the state's done, and we appreciate it. They have mailed out the notices that you will be cut. They've they've texted you that you will be cut. They have gotten people pretty much panicking now because they've gotten the bad news. But the question to the people, where do I go from here? And I know the state is not putting out 513relief.org and those kind of things. So if I'm a person, I say, hey, they proactively gave me a letter. I need you to proactively send me where the help is. So I would like to see a plan that we, in the next week with Mr. Ludo leading that plan that would involve, here is the proactive, because everybody's not on social media. Right. If you're cutting my SNAP benefits and I can't afford eggs and bacon, my phone might probably going out. So we want to be able to see what other ways we can reach them. I don't know if we can do a letter, but if you can, just to say, here's what we sent out to help people.
Sure.
That would be helpful. And then, Mr. Ludo, did you want to add to that? You're looking into ARPA dollars and seeing what programs may have some extra money available?
Yeah, Madam President, first of all, we're happy to, and I'll work with Director Patton. We'll put together a plan in terms from a communication action perspective that we can make sure that the residents who are impacted by this understand where assistance is going to be available to them in the community. And on that note, we will, by Thursday, bring to the board a by-leave item. I'll talk with Director Patton, Assistant Administrator Chrisman, who oversees our ARPA program, on a recommendation to the board as to how much we can pull from ARPA to go to some of these agencies that are going to be strained, that can provide direct assistance to individuals who may be impacted by these changes. So we can get that to the board on Thursday.
That'd be great. And I think also having a draft letter that we could sign and send to our delegation on behalf of the 52,000 families. I've heard from my colleagues, and we're all advocates fighting for the citizens, but I'd just like to have Hamilton County on record that, you never know. Just like with us, we're getting calls and people say if they don't well, we didn't hear from any of these folks. I think having something that we could draft citing the impact that it's having. I think the issue is, a big part of this issue is timing. If there was no inflation, then maybe, okay, you had it 3 years and, we can't do it forever. I think the issue is timing. There's inflation. And if the prices have gone up you giving me less money, now it hits everything. More people now homeless. More people now can't make it. More people now health issues. And it just hits us on all these other levels. So I think the message today is not so much that they ended this and the federal government said it can't be forever. No, federal government, we have inflation and we didn't create it, but there's inflation and it costs too much to buy bread and eggs. And now you're gonna cut down people from being able to have bread and eggs and bacon and chicken and baby Pampers. I mean, come on, at a time when the inflation is up. So our issue is really the timing of it, not necessarily that we know that one day that this was not gonna be forever, but we didn't know that we would be paying the money that we're paying for bacon and eggs now, which makes it very tough for people to afford it. So I'm looking forward to us as a county having our proactive action plan. We've got some options. They're not maybe as big as this program, but maybe we have some options to try to help people get through, and hopefully the economy will change. And encourage everyone to go to our 513relief.org page if you can, or meet us at the bus. 513 Relief bus will be on January 26th. That's Thursday, I think. Thursday, yes, 26th at 10 a.m. at Corinthian Baptist Church. And we want to make sure we reach out to make sure the Free Store Food Bank will be there to join us as well. So that's all. You have anything else, Vice President, Commissioner? Yes,
One
Commissioner.
question. Can we cross-check the list that we get from the state as it relates to the 52,000 that they sent the notification? Because we know the state, they mean well, but sometimes they're not as efficient as we would like for them to be, and that'll stop a lot of the fires, I think, that take place when they call and say, I didn't get a notification. You can cross-check your list that they send you with what they have, who they have called.
We can certainly take a look at that. We're using the state's database, and so they're pulling directly from the system of record that we use to determine that. So we can certainly make sure that if there are some folks that were missed, we can identify that.
Very good, thanks. Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. If there is no further business, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Reese,
Yes,
Commissioner Dreehouse.
Yes?
Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Yes.
thank you.